This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 194, recorded on December 4th, 2014. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home, news, reviews, product updates, and conversation, even product releases, as we'll talk about tonight, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska. Actually, a very nice Bellevue, Nebraska. And we post the show notes with world-class show notes each week out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, of course, you can send those right to us. Contact the show, Jim at theaverageguy.tv. Track me down on Twitter at jcollison, or now you can call in those questions. I'd love to have you do that. Here in the U.S., 402-478-8450, and we'll play those questions right here on the program. And now Home Gadget Geeks is a part of the Geeks Network. Find the links to this show and many other great podcasts out at thegeeksnetwork.com. Join us live for chat, watch, or listen live on YouTube and on Spreaker, as well as Mixer. We have all kinds of ways to listen and watch the show, both live and recorded, and all the navigation for this. And the subscription links can be found at theaverageguy.tv. All right, we kind of have a dual-purpose program for you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about a product release from Kickstarter about the OnAir player. We'll talk about that here in a second. Mike Howard and Tim Kemperly will stay on, and we'll talk about buying cameras around Christmas. You guys know that I like to, before the Christmas season, we talk about buying all those tech gifts for your family, and we're going to start with cameras. Next week, we're going to have Ashton and Christian back on. We'll talk a little bit about Cyber Frontiers, as well as some fitness gadgets. So if you're thinking about buying a fitness gadget for your family during this holiday season here around Christmas, we'd love to have you coming back next week as well. All right, a returning guest here, and we're super excited to have him back on, and he contacted me a month or so ago. Daniel Volka, he is the CEO of OnAir Player. And Daniel, great to have you back on Home Gadget Geeks. Thanks for coming.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So let's catch up with you a little bit. We had you, the last time we had you on the show back in March, April time frame, I think show 159 or so. We talked about OnAir Player, and actually a bunch of the guys here on the program gave it a try. We worked with it. We played music off of it, some guys more than others. Kevin Schoonover, of course, he dug right in and got moving on it. Bring us up to speed. What's happened with the company since March? What are you guys doing? And then let's talk a little bit about the announcement that you wanted to make.
Yeah. So mainly we have continued the development of the app, of the apps, I gotta say. So we run on Android phones, tablets, all kinds of PCs and Macs, and Linux. We have a web app, and we've added some apps for set-top boxes like Amazon Fire TV, Ouya, and others that you can stream your music to TVs and home theater setups as well. So we've continued development there. We've started to integrate external cloud services, which we're going to launch soon. We're going to launch very soon the SoundCloud integration, so that you can not only listen to your local music from different devices, but also stuff from the web, have everything in one place. And then the main push was towards building a hardware device. We realized OnAir Player is great and lots of people love the concept of it, but usually the last mile into the living room of normal geeks that do not have their Linux server hooked up to their stereo system and TV and everything, but just have
Yeah, no, you're fine. I'm going to bring it up while you're talking about it. I'll just bring it up and show folks.
Exactly. So just normal people that want to use it that same way too, that want to stream their music throughout their whole house, but simply have an existing old school stereo there. They have been left out so far, and so we've developed that OnAir box to solve exactly that problem. It's a little round device that you can see that there on the screen too. The idea is simple. You simply buy one of those devices, you connect it to your existing stereo via a analog audio connector or an optical audio connector, SPDIF. And then you can use OnAir Player and simply stream all your music to that stereo that you've just connected. So that is the multi-room aspect of OnAir Player. The cool thing about this device too is it features, as you can see on that image there and also here, it features two USB plugs, two USB connectors. What you can do there is you can simply connect a thumb drive or your external hard drive where all your music is on, and the device itself will simply index all the music on that hard drive and make it available on all your devices. So in the end, what you do is you connect.
Let me interrupt real quick. Which formats? So a lot of the guys, always were talking about what kind of formats. So what are the supported? If I took a flash drive and I had music on it, what are the supported formats?
Music formats, you mean?
Yeah, music formats. Yes.
That depends on where you want to play it. So basically, on AirPlayer, the way OnAir Player works is we're never transcoding anything. We're not, your original quality music stays the way it is. We just shift the files basically from where they are stored to where they need to be played back. So if you want to play that music on your Android phone, for instance, it's whatever your Android phone supports, which is MP3, FLAC, pretty much everything except WMA, Windows Media Audio, and a few more.
A few things that don't really matter, right?
That are not that popular. But yeah, so all the main ones like MP3, FLAC, Apple codecs are supported depending on where you stream it. So if you stream it, for instance, to your MacBook, which we have an app for as well, then all the Apple codecs are obviously supported because we use a local Mac to actually play it back. If you play it on your Windows computer, you can use Windows Media Audio. So it always depends on where you stream it to. For the box itself, the box is based on Android, so we support the standard ones, meaning MP3, FLAC, and I think OGG4RIS should be supported too. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just switching some things around so that folks can kind of see it. And so, to review a little bit on this, we kind of we dove right in to get to the box. But the concept with OnAir Player was not to consolidate your music in one location, not to go out and grab it from every place and put it all in one location so where you can play it. It was more a distributed model. Wherever your music is, you can, as long as it's available to you and you have the software loaded on the device, you can play that music as long as it's available to you in that network, right? So I could have some on my iPad, I might have some on my computer, it could be on my MacBook, I could have it on my devices. In this case, you're extending that out to this device that would then, I could maybe even load it, I could take a hard drive, right, and load that music on there and plug it in, and that now becomes a network device that I can see and choose from and play from, right? That's the extension capability. And then play out to, and I assume as I roll down here as well and look at the, let me not play that video. As we look at the control here, I'm assuming then you also can play it. Say I want to play this song on this device, and that's connected to it. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So go back to the beginning. You're right. The idea is no more syncing, no more uploading your music. You just have access to all your music wherever it is. So you install the app on all your devices where you have music at, and whatever device you now grab, your phone, your tablet, the web app, you'll see the sum of all the music from all your devices where you installed it. And now with the box, that'll just be one more device that contributes music to that list. The main advantage is, or disadvantage using using apps on your MacBook or your computer is you can install the app there, you can import your music, and it'll all work. But as soon as you turn that computer off, obviously that music won't be available anymore. I mean, OnAir Player is smart enough to detect that and then to hide that music from you, so you simply won't see it while the computer is off. But still, it means that if you want to have an always all your music with you anywhere and always approach, you need to have your computer running at home. And that is one thing that this box is solving too. You simply connect your hard drive to it. The music that is connected to that box, to that hard drive, is always on. And the box itself, it runs on an ARM processor, Android hardware, so it's very power efficient. It won't suck much data, much power. You can basically keep it on always, and it's like your whole private home media server that's always on. And you're right. So you have all the music that is connected to that accessible everywhere, and you can also simply select stream to, and then you have all your devices where you want to listen to the music to, which includes your apps from your computers, but the box itself will simply show up there too. So the idea is really, from the simple point of view of using it, you connect that box to your home stereo, you connect a external hard drive to it with the music, and that's it. You leave it there, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Now when you come home, you take your phone and say stream music to my stereo, and it just works. You have all your music there. You can control it from your phone or tablet while listening to it on the stereo. And when you leave home, you still have access to all that music on your phone too.
Yeah, so you can kind of, your iPad, so to speak, could become, or tablet could become the home media control panel for all the music that you have around the house, be able to dictate where you want that to play to, around there. The device, let's talk, can you hold that up for me real quick? And listen, if you, just so we get a look at the size of it there against you, so that size. And then come back around to each of the ports, and let's just walk through those again real quick, so folks get a chance to see those really well.
So can you see it like that?
Yeah, that's perfect. No, that's great. You bet.
So here we have two USB ports where you can connect your external hard drive or USB thumbstick or whatever you have music stored on. Next coming up is AV, so that is your analog audio out. It's a simple headphone jack, like you have it on any iPod, or where you could connect your headphones, or we'll also ship it with a cable that transforms that, connects that to an RCA stereo connector. So this is where you would connect your stereo the analog way. That next one here is simple power. That'll be a power connector coming with it. Then we have an Ethernet plug. So that device itself also has Wi-Fi. You don't need to connect it to an Ethernet port, but if you happen to have an Ethernet cable handy where you want to connect it to, that's the even easier way to do it. We have an HDMI port, so it is not only for a stereo, but you can also connect it to your TV if you like. You'll have a nice UI that always shows you what's currently playing, and also obviously can receive music over HDMI, so you can play stream the music to your TV if your TV, for instance, is hooked up to some nice surround sound system or so that you want to leverage. Coming up next is the optical audio out. Sony Panasonic Digital Interface, SPDIF. It's just those standard optical cables. It's awesome if you want to connect a really high quality stereo to it and really want to make sure you don't lose much quality or no quality at all while transmitting it. And then here we have a micro SD card slot. So in case you don't want to extra use that external hard drive that you have lying around, but if you have, for instance, a micro SD card up to 32 gigs and your music library happens to fit on that, just put your music on that, enter the SD card in there, and the music from that SD card will be available everywhere too.
And how big of an SD card does the device support?
32 gigs, so it's the HC, high capacity, not the XC.
And Lopto was asking in our chat room, he's got I think he said a Western Digital media box, and every time he turns it on, it's got to re-index all the music files, and it takes a long time to come up. If I put a big hard drive on there that had a whole bunch of music, is there going to be a delay for me? And when I turn that thing, say it's turned off and I need to turn it on, would it have to spin up and index everything?
So the very first time you connect it, it needs to index everything, and that'll take some time depending on your library. So that can take some minutes or tens of minutes. Next time, usually when you turn the device back on, that should not happen. All that happens is we run over. It will be available right away, and in the background we'll do a background check. Did something change in between? Did something get added or removed or moved or something like that? if you, yeah, so there could be a special case if while OnAir Player is running and now the device gets turned off or on while the app is starting, that it is trying to see what changed and now everything is gone, then it's removing that from the index. So next time it comes back on, it might be needed to be added again. But, well, even that, if that would happen, that would be something we'd improve over time. So the idea is that would not have to happen. Yeah.
Tech guys are going to push that limit. Do you really intend the device to be on 24/7? Is that kind of bring it in, turn it on, connect it to the device, maybe your stereo or whatever, and leave it on? Does it have some power efficiency stuff built into it? What are you guys thinking about that?
Yes, that's exactly the idea. Connect it to your external stereo, add it to external hard drive, and keep it on 24/7. Just put it next to your router, like you have your router at home always on too, right? Your Wi-Fi router. We intended that to be that same type of device. And yes, it is very low power. It's like an Android phone without a screen. It maybe draws 1 watt or so, 2 watts at full power, probably while it's idling, even way less. You'll likely not even notice it on your electricity bill.
Probably not, no. Not indeed.
Especially if you have a lot of gadgets at home anyways. I mean, your stereo already is probably pulling 5 watts and more in standby mode without even being turned on. And I expect this device to be significantly less, even in operation.
I think the devices behind me by themselves are probably doing that. Tim, Mike, questions before we talk about the actual delivery of the box?
Yeah, and so I'm really new to this, so this may be a question that's kind of stupid, but my wife has a large iTunes collection. Could she use this to play her iTunes collection on our TV, which is connected to a 5.1 stereo? Could we do that?
Yes, if the collection is not DRM protected.
Okay.
So if you bought it, if it's newer purchased, Apple stopped DRM protecting that at some point, then it works. DRM protected music, we're not cracking that. It's technically almost impossible or hard and would be illegal. We're not doing that.
Yeah. So no need to.
Yeah, right. So her unprotected, I think you said, right?
Yes. Normal unprotected MP3s, because
Or unprotected, she would be able to be down once we do whatever we need to do. She would be able to play it from her phone to the TV.
Yeah. So basically, what she would do is either she would connect that iTunes library to the box to have it always on, or if she doesn't want to do that, she simply installs OnAir Player on her Mac, where she has her iTunes library located,
or PC
for the music, and then she connects that box to your TV or stereo, and then she can just sit on the couch, take any tablet or phone or browser or other computer to access all that music, have everything in one list, and simply say stream to TV, and it'll just work. And even then, while you're outside at work, for instance, you can open up a browser and still have access to all your music from home and listen to it through the browser.
So how soon can I buy this?
Very.
Daniel, let's talk about then what's the retail channel going to be for this? Give us price. Give us all the lowdown. I know you're doing Kickstarter, so give us the spiel on how this is going to work if people wanted to take a peek at this and maybe even purchase it.
Yeah. So we are going live on Kickstarter actually very soon, probably tomorrow or the day after. This weekend it's planned. So that is, if you can't wait to get your fingers on one, that's going to be the way for you to be one of the first to get it. Back us there, and as one of those rewards, you'll obviously get a box then. We're starting for the early birds. If you're one of the first to grab one, we're starting at $35. And the eventual box, so the last ones and all those after the Kickstarter, will be retailing at $49, including shipping.
I did have another question.
Go ahead, Mike.
And I read it somewhere. You probably wouldn't want to do this like in the same room because it's not a perfect sync. But let's say I wanted to have the same music basically playing around the house, and I have a 3-story, basement, main level, 2-story. Would I need 3 of those devices, one on maybe each floor, connected to some kind of stereo equipment, and all three of them play the same music. So as you move through the house, maybe it's off a few seconds, but you won't notice it as you move throughout the house. Would that be achievable too?
Correct. That's exactly how it works. And actually, we're also working on having it perfectly synced to the millisecond so that you could even have two devices in the same room. We're not yet there, but we're working on that. But if it's off, it's never more off than by 2 or 3 seconds, usually even below a second.
Yeah.
So if you have it in different rooms and you don't hear the echo directly from the rooms, if you move between different levels, that's going to be totally fine. Correct. And you can simply select to stream to multiple devices at the same time. Yes.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
How does it handle the album art, Daniel? When we talk about moving those files, I assume you're just reading whatever art, whatever's embedded in that file, and because you're using the transcoding on the end of the device that you're listening to, it must just be whatever's in the file. Is that right?
Yes. So I'm using whatever's in the files if I find something there, and if not, I'm using some online services to look it up if it's available there. Sometimes. Also, if other users had the same file and had album art in there, I'm matching that. So if you have a Michael Jackson Thriller at home and it does not have the album art, but somebody else had that already, then I'm matching that and I'm simply reusing that. So most of your files will have an album art, even if you didn't have it locally. The way I'm doing it, so OnAir Player does not upload or sync your music. It always stays where you stored it initially. But what we do upload is we create an index of the music on every device, and we do upload that index alongside with the album arts. So that's how you can, when you open up a browser or open up your tablet, how you see all the song list quite instantly and all the album arts quite quickly. Because we don't have to, every time you access your music, upload all the album art directly from the device that stores it.
And so what kind of infrastructure are you guys running on the backside? I mean, is it certainly, since there's nothing's being stored, you're keeping track of some meta based on the music itself, but do you guys have a fairly large infrastructure that you're using? Are you up on Amazon? How's that working?
Yeah, we're actually running on multiple cloud services. We're running on Microsoft Azure virtual machines like Amazon, and we're running on Google's cloud platform.
App Engine. I like to hear that you're on Azure. I like that. So I'm an Azure guy myself, so appreciate you.
I like it too. Until lately, like 2 weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, do you realize that when they managed to actually crash all the virtual machines worldwide at the same time? I'm not quite sure how you technically can do that, even if you try to.
It's crazy. I know. It's like you would almost have to have a coordinated attack to do that, and somehow they pulled it off. Yeah, unfortunately.
We have extra built an architecture with an OnAir Player that is very fail-safe. If some servers crash or even a complete data center burns down, the user usually never would even realize that. It automatically falls over to another one. But if all worldwide fail at the same time, yeah, we had a little downtime there. But usually it doesn't happen.
So Ken from chat asks, he says, so is OnAir an online database of everyone else's album art then? So are you keeping some track of album art globally around? Is it local to me? Is it global, across users, or how does that work, the album art piece working?
Well, I mean, we're not a database, so we do store those album arts online, but basically for internal use. Only for you to be able to, when you have your player, when you want to listen to a song that you already own, that we can show you the correct album art with it.
Perfect.
We're not in sharing, distributing, or selling any of that data. It's just, that's what we consider fair use. It is a intellectual property of the artist, obviously, but the only way we use that image is to enrich the audio file that you as an end user already paid for when you're listening to it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's great clarification. So $35 Kickstarter will go live sometime this weekend, possibly. Ship that link to me when you have it, and we, of course, will include it in the show notes. Or is there a link I should be watching right now, or will that get a unique link on Kickstarter?
Actually, if you wait 1 second, I give you a preview link to
great.
our Kickstarter campaign, so people can already check it out and look at the details. They won't be able to back us just yet because it's not yet live, but as I said, it will be live within a few days, probably on the weekend. 1 second, just retrieving that link here.
Yeah, no problem. We'll also, for anyone watching the video or listening to the audio, I'll have that link available in the show notes if you want to head back. theaverageguy.tv/HGG for Home Gadget Geeks, HGG 194 will get you there. Or just search OnAir Player in our search box and you'll see this post as well coming up. Ken had also asked the reason for the Azure crash in that. And did you? I saw they were giving SLA money back from that incident. Did that affect you guys? You gonna get any money back from the
I haven't heard from that yet. I think that is only if you are on some enterprise plans where you actually have those SLA agreements. The normal guys that just rent some
you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my blog was down. I got a note. We use Uptime Robot to monitor our websites, and I saw that go down, and that almost never goes down. And I was like, "What the heck's going on?" And so I peeked out there through the Microsoft channels. We got some word on the backside of what was going on, and I saw the note. We'll be offering refunds, SLA refunds, for anyone affected. And you're right. It's in a certain. You have to be in a certain class. It's not in my class with an MSDN subscription for sure.
Yeah, and the thing is, usually, and that's the way I architected that backend server architecture, everything is, usually I wouldn't even need it, right? The architecture is built in a way that there's always a whole farm of servers, and if a few of those fall down, the whole system in itself is not affected. So usually you wouldn't even think you need that SLA kind of thing, because okay, here's the data center that goes down, I'll just shoot up some VM somewhere else. So far, I wasn't aware that it's actually technically possible to shoot down all data centers worldwide at the same time. But yeah, you learn.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hopefully, they learn from that, and they will not let that happen.
Somebody pushed the wrong button.
Somebody, the cleaning service pulled the plug on the main server. Other Jim asked in chat, can the USB port support other devices, like if you had an old Zune or if you had an iPod? Well, iPod probably wouldn't work from that standpoint, but are there other, I guess if it's Android and it can see that storage that's on that device, then I would say yes, right?
Correct, yeah. So if it is identifying itself to the device as USB storage, then yes. I'm not sure. iPods, I think that only works with iTunes software, is it? I haven't tried that. I don't think iPods, for instance, work as normal USB storage, so that wouldn't work. But anything that is a normal USB storage does work. By the way, one thing that I need to mention there is so hard drives that do not have an external power supply might work or not. If they draw too much power, there is a limited amount of power that device offers. So it works with external hard drives that have their own external power supply, but those mobile ones that you usually have with your laptop that draw all the power from USB, some of them work, some of them don't, depending on how much power they draw.
Okay. Best practice. I would imagine you could even plug your own phone if you had an Android phone or a Windows phone, or I don't know about the iPhone, but those are seen as, when you plug those into a PC or whatever, those are seen as storage devices, and you could grab that music off of those.
I'm not too sure, honestly. So my Android phone is not being seen. If I connect that to my laptop, I need to run a special software to actually access the Android software.
Which Android phone do you have?
That's the Nexus 5.
Okay.
But it's also Mac. It's not Windows that I'm running on.
Yeah, I don't have to check that out. I guess so. The question really is, right, on this is that, or the answer really is, if the device, if it can be seen as a storage device, like you said, then yes. Yeah. The answer is yes. It'll work. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So if it's simply a storage device like a USB stick or an external hard drive, there is no difference to the OnAir box. But if you like a phone, I don't think it identifies itself as a simple storage device, at least not by default. If you can make that work, then yes, but I think Windows simply has some drivers for Android phones pre-built in, so it actually works when you plug it in, but it's not really a storage device. Because otherwise, if it was, it would also work with my Mac out of the box that I need. that extra software.
Thanks for the link. I put the Kickstarter link. I'll put it both in the show notes as well as it's in the chat room. If you're out listening to us live, you can go out and take a peek at that. That $35 to get in to support. When will they ship? And I know you don't have exact dates on this, but if you jump in as a supporter, when would I expect or could I think about getting a device?
Currently, we're planning on shipping in June next year. That being said, we actually put quite some buffer in that timeline, so we internally hope to be able to ship earlier. But as you know, projects always run over time, and there's always shit happens that you never expected, so that's why we added another little buffer in there, so hopefully we will not have to push it out to the delay it. But with a little luck, we'll ship even earlier. But yeah, current plan is Q2 this year and next year, so in June.
No, very cool. This is exciting. It's a great product that I haven't done. This will be my first Kickstarter. I'm going to jump in as soon as you make it available and jump on this. This is cool. I've appreciated you supporting the podcast and coming back to us and letting us kind of break this news out there as well. And so we'll jump out there. And I'll encourage if you're listening, if you're and we've got quite a few listening to the show now. If you're listening out there and you want to give this a try. And Daniel and his team are very accessible in a lot of ways. If you want a proof, just ask Kevin Schoonover in our community. Kevin has done some things and contacted you guys with a lot of questions, and he got some good feedback from you guys. I would imagine that hasn't changed. You guys are still fairly accessible. And what's the best way if someone had some questions about this, Daniel? What's the best way for them to ask that?
Best way, either email, Twitter, Facebook. We even have a chat on our website where you can just ping me and you usually get an instant answer as long as I'm not sleeping or as long as I'm somewhere close to my computer. I will hear that ding and I will answer it right away.
Yeah.
So try that. Try the website chat. And if that doesn't work, just send an email to support@OnAirPlayer or Daniel@OnAirPlayer.com. And I'm usually very quick in answering emails and supporting.
You're an entrepreneur. You never sleep, right? That's
exactly.
That's the kind of the way. You haven't slept since you started the company, I bet.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, slept,
a couple deserved weeks of vacation there in Taiwan. Thanks for. It's not too early there. We're what time? What's the local time there?
10:30 a.m.
Oh, perfect.
So,
you got some breakfast and.
Totally.
And you're joining us. So the time synced up really well for us, and thanks. Before we let you go, anything else do you want to throw in there as far as information for the listeners?
Not really. I think we've covered most of it. So we're going live on Kickstarter in a few days. The link is with the show, is in the chat and on the show website. Check us out, have a look, support us, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to help.
All right. Sounds good, Daniel.
Thanks for one closing thing.
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
To me, at that price point, this is a no-brainer. How would you not do this?
Yeah.
$49 to get this thing?
Yeah.
Well, but you can get it if you jump on the Kickstarter. You can get it for $35. I mean, that's a Chrome.
I know that's even better. I mean,
right? So how could you not?
The first few hundred, though, not so. Only the early birds. The first few hundred are at $35 and $40, and then the rest goes to $49. Yes.
Well,
so my worst case scenario, I got to pay $49 for this. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. At $49, it's still a no-brainer. It's still, a great price point.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'll sell a ton of these.
That's why we actually have set a rather high limit on Kickstarter. We're raising $200,000 or more, and one reason we're doing that is actually to be able to get to that low price point, because we believe this device is just way more sexy at $49 than it would be at $99, and we need to be able to actually produce it in large numbers to get down to that price point.
Right, because somebody like me, when you got it at $49, I'm thinking about buying multiples of these.
And that's the whole point of it, right? Yeah. And that's the whole point of it. We want people to do that. It's a multi-room streaming solution. It's one for every room, for every stereo you have, connected everywhere, and now use all your mobile devices to simply stream the music around your house without setup or complex configuration. It just works, and music is there for everybody. Yes. Yep. So one for every room.
Thank you.
All right, very cool, Daniel. Thank you. At this point we'll let you go and go back to your vacation. Enjoy
Still
the.
working here, unfortunately, but I'll get back to that.
Sounds good. Friday, your Friday is already. You're almost done. You're so far ahead of us at this point. You're almost to the weekend.
Yep.
And thanks for taking a second to jump in. Keep us posted. Maybe we can check back in with you after the first of the year to see how the Kickstarter project is going and just kind of get a quick update from you. It'd be great.
Be more than happy to.
You bet.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jay.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Nice
Have
to
a
meet
good
you.
weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care. All right, very cool. That's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to follow this.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is something that I know my wife will be interested in. When I'll have to hook it up and get it all running. But once
Of course you will.
well, once I get it all up and running, she's gonna be excited to be able to play her music at different places in the house.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel, you don't have to hang around with us if you don't want to. We'll let you go.
Alrighty, cool.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Yeah, I'm super. This is kind of fun that these guys. It's fun to get on. There's other devices that do some of the similar stuff, but it's kind of fun to know these guys. They were good enough to. Daniel was good enough to come on, at the beginning of the year and talk to us. And they have. I love the concept of not moving your music around. Right. This is the difference. You don't have to consolidate it into iTunes or to Amazon and by the way, full disclosure, I use Amazon Cloud for my music. But would I need to with something like this? Doesn't look like it. I could just leave my music where it's at and connect all the devices together, and I'd have access to it.
My wife was a big iTunes user, and I don't know what happens with iTunes. This has happened more than once, where the iTunes library just is gone. And I've been trying to get her to, she's bought all this music, and I don't know how we get all this music back. Talk to somebody at Apple and hope that they agree to give us what I've already bought back. I don't know. And we're going to have to do this for every song. How do I know what songs I had? Anyway, I've been trying to get her, get rid of iTunes. I hate that software. And move over to something like, like you did, put it on Google or put it on Amazon or something like that. Or, for me personally, I don't use any stored music anywhere. I stream everything. Yeah, over my phone, driving in and driving to and from work every day. If I'm not listening to a podcast, I'm streaming Pandora or Bluetooth through my truck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I do more streaming than I do listening that way, but it is nice to have access to that. You do buy some music, and this just gives you some freedom to have it. If you're one that you bought it or ripped it, or maybe it's specialty music you can't get.
And this would be perfect for my wife. Well, she does do some streaming, but not as much as me. She has bought a bunch of music. I just need to figure out how to get it back. And like she has a Christmas party with her and her friends from school, and she loved to be playing that music in the background. Of course, it's happening next week, so it won't be in time for this. But she'd love to be playing that music in the background. And then, like I was talking about, you would love for, as somebody went through the different section in the room, that's a section in the house, that music is still playing somewhere else. And it doesn't have to be in perfect sync. It would be great if it was. But if it was, at least close, and you left one room and you come in somewhere else and music is playing there too, that same song, it's I think that's a nice, I don't know, it's nice.
Yeah.
I don't know what adjective to use there.
Well, what if you had some sensing in there that would, if there's no movement in the room, it would shut the music off, and then when you walk back in, it would bring the music quietly back on, synced with the other rooms, so that.
I don't care too much about that. And I know the Lobster, somebody was asking about multiplex. I don't know what he was asking about. I got to imagine streaming the music throughout your house on a gigabit LAN is not even going to register on the usage there, right?
I wouldn't think so. It's not like video.
Maybe like 0.1% or something.
Yeah,
right.
It couldn't be too much.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I don't know. I think it's worth testing, and I hope I'm clipping on
well,
that one.
To me, it's like what was that Chrome thing that I bought?
Chromecast.
Yeah, Chromecast. Whatever the price point was on that, it was so cheap. I said I'll just buy two, and guess what? They're still both of them in their box. I haven't used them yet. I will eventually, but with this thing, this is even cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Tim. It's kind of sad that I bought them and never used them.
Well, I think I bought 3 Chrome 6. I have 2 hooked up, and now I just went out and bought this past week the Fire TV stick,
yeah.
and they're still sitting in the box. So, and I bought 2 of them right away because you know they were $19. I mean,
yeah.
Did yours come already?
Yeah, mine came last week.
Oh, man, I'm super. Wow. So you got in on the 19 deal on Amazon.
I got in the 19, right?
You got them already.
Right. And a guy at work calls me up. He's like, "Did you see that?" I was like, "No." He's talking to me on the phone. I was like, "Yep, but just ordered 2." I'm not even sure if the problem is I'm running out of HDMI ports on my. On
Isn't that funny?
That's really the problem I'm running into now.
I ran out. That's why I haven't used it.
We bought these TVs and we're like 4 HDMI ports in the back. What do you need all that for?
Exactly.
Now we're running out.
Now, granted, my main TV, I have an AV receiver, and I got 8 HDMI ports on there. That's not the problem. But my son's room only has 2 HDMI ports.
Right.
So he's got a Blu-ray player and the TiVo on it. So I think I removed the Blu-ray because I have up to his computer the Plex player, which has his computer hooked up to it, which I ran a long line underneath the house to get to him. But I'm still short a port for him now if I wanted to give him this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's my Chromecast right here. This is the second one I've ordered, and so for the longest time, we had these, and obviously it's not plugged into anything yet.
I was gonna say,
right? And so the other night, we've got one out in the living room, and I took it out there and to show Sarah how to use it, a while ago. It's been sitting out there a couple months, and I was like, she's not using that thing. I'm gonna take it away. So the other night I'm sitting out there with her and we were watching The Voice and she's like, oh, wait a minute, you got to see some videos from last week. And she pulls out her phone and like boom, and then hits the Chromecast button and it boom, YouTube pops up on the TV and she's playing videos for me using the Chromecast, and I was so proud of her. I was like, oh, you're actually using it.
Do one of you guys have the sound on when somebody posts in chat?
Yeah, it's probably me. You hear it?
Yeah, I was wondering who was doing that.
Oh, I wasn't hearing it.
And
That's okay.
So, Christopher Courtney, I think that's how you say his name. He said they do make HDMI switches. Yes,
Yeah.
That we're all complaining about. We ran out. You could get a switch and get more.
I do. I think I have 2 of them actually because I originally had it on my main receiver because I had more inputs or more devices than inputs, and I use it I think between probably the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox or the Blu-ray player, whatever it was, and it's a pain in the neck. You shouldn't have to have that.
Yeah. Well, I ordered the Fire Stick. I must have got on they had 50 of them, and I got the 51st order, and they're like January 4th.
Oh.
So I am out. It would have been nice to have it at Christmas time, but it's what I need down here in the studios. I need to get a big, 50-inch TV that I can.
Yeah, that's what you need.
It'd cover the lights, is what it'd cover. Well, Daniel, thanks. We'll thank Daniel Voca for coming out and doing that tonight. We do want to talk some photography. I brought these guys on. I don't want to waste too much more time talking about that. Lots of chat about Plex and media out there, and from a community standpoint. OnAir player, again, if you're interested in doing that, I think I'm going to jump out this weekend and pick up for $35. Even at Mike, like you said, at $49, not a bad thing to give a try for. So if you want to get out there, we'll have the links out in the show notes for you. All right, guys, Christmas time is coming up. The goal over the next couple weeks of the podcast is to talk about stuff for Christmas that's coming up, and kind of a Christmas buying guide, so to speak. And so what I asked you guys to do was kind of come up with some lists of things that's kind of hot, what's hot out there for if you have your photographer loved one or family member that you're thinking of buying something for, or if you're a photographer yourself and you're into buying yourself Christmas presents, which some of us are, right? Apparently we are still buying things at Christmas time for ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Mike, I'm going to start with you as we roll through kind of this Christmas buying guide for the photographer.
I'm going to start off by saying I put photographers in 2 buckets, and then there's many multi-buckets underneath it. But you have 2 buckets. You have the snap shooter, whatever that is, and the photographer. The first person, it doesn't really matter which kind of camera they have. They just want to take snapshots. Really don't care about getting great quality and learning about f-stops and learning about white balance and all that kind of stuff. They would like to have a little bit better photos, but that's not a real big concern of theirs. So I'm not going to be talking to those guys. I'm talking to the people who are a little bit more into it. Tim might have some stuff for both groups, but for me, if you're in group 2, the photographer, you're looking to take, improve your photography, get better and investing in gear and investing in yourself. The number one thing you got to have is software. You got to have, well, other than the camera, you got to have decent software. And Adobe has made a great deal, what I think is a great deal for photographers, where you can get Photoshop and Lightroom in the photography plan that they have. It's a monthly subscription, and if you ever stop paying, you lose it. But you can get it for an annual. You pay an annual price of $113, I think it is, $114, and then you have Photoshop and Lightroom, the two top editing pieces of software and organization things, hands down, in photography. You have those two for that cheap price, where I think if you're looking at Photoshop alone, which you can't even buy anymore, you have to do this thing. If you're looking at and why does it say 115 now? The prices must have changed.
There, it's Amazon. They're changing stuff all the time.
Yeah, so if you're buying Photoshop all by itself before, you're paying over $600 for that. If you are a person in that group number 2 I was talking about, and you're balking at paying $113, $115 a year for Photoshop and Lightroom, you're really not in group 2. You're in group 1.
Right.
Okay.
So that's my number 1.
This is okay, but this is this is software. This isn't the subscription stuff.
That is.
This is a subscription.
Yeah, so I sent you that link where you can prepay a year. You can also go to Adobe's website and pay a year there too. We prepay a year for that, where you're getting what they call the photography plan, where you have Photoshop and Lightroom, and that's it. Adobe also has the Creative Cloud that includes everything they make, and it's more expensive.
Mm-hmm. And
if you really think of it, this is really the cheapest way to go with Photoshop and Lightroom. I think Lightroom on its own is about $140. And then you have every year and a half they upgrade the software for another $70. So between just the cost of that, if you're going to upgrade, it kind of pays for it. Then you think, like Mike said, Photoshop itself is a $600 program, and to renew that is generally around $300 for every. What's the recycle on that? Is it every 3 years, or is it 18 months? I think for every new version of Photoshop. This gives you the new version right away. It updates it for you, and it's the two things that you really need. Originally, when they came out with the bundles, I think it included some of the products that I didn't want, but this was probably the best one with Photoshop and Lightroom.
Yeah, and there are alternatives out there. There's Photoshop Elements. There's things like GIMP and that kind of stuff. I think somebody mentioned in there, but none of those compare to Photoshop and Lightroom. They are hands down the top dogs.
Okay.
And they're a little bit different. They do a little bit different stuff. I like the combination, and for that price, it's hard to pass up. Again, if you're in group 2 that I talked about, then you shouldn't be worried about paying $113 a year.
Correct. What do we have in the area of training, Mike?
So the next thing I think is if you're in that group where you're wanting to get better, just like if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or many different professions, you need to be looking at what can I do to help improve myself? How can I get better at what I'm doing? And I think one of the best things is take some kind of workshop, some kind of online class. The one you have here is with Damien. He has a very active Facebook group called Ask Damien, and I am actually in those all three classes you have there: the raw class, the layer and mask class, and the levels class. I've bought them and myself, and I am going through them right now. I'm hoping to get him on the show at some point.
Nice.
And it's training for you. You should be out there shooting and learning how to get better, but also training. If you don't want to do something online, there's also workshops. I don't have specific link to this because there's so many of them. There's workshops where you can travel. I know people who, a good friend of mine, just went out to Yellowstone and did a workshop out there shooting wildlife in Yellowstone. So that's a little bit bigger investment than what we talked about before. But I think what you should be looking at is some type of training in the new year for you. The ones that are online, like the one I put there with Damien, and then there's another one with Mark Johnson where he has premium editing videos. Those are ones where you can do them at home at your own leisure and they're not that expensive. So that would make a great gift for somebody to buy some of these things.
All right.
But look at training.
Yep. And I think we probably overlook that in a lot of people get into hobbies and then they don't want to spend money on their hobby. We find this in podcasting all the time. I hear from podcasters, well, I want to do podcasting, but I don't want to spend $15 a month to, and you're like, well, if you're going to get serious about the hobby, you're probably going to drop a few coins.
Yeah, if you're getting into a hobby like golf or model airplanes or something like that, you're spending a lot of money. Now the Photoshop with Damien the class I just talked about with Damien, they're not crazy expensive. They're maybe $50, something like that, $80. It's not that expensive. We have the links there in the show notes. And you don't have to take all three. You can just take one of them, and you can do a little bit of perusing and see which one would make better sense to me. I did all three just so I could talk about them later on. But some type of training is good for you, and you should be doing it not just for this time, but every year you should be doing some kind of retraining. And again, I get asked all the time, what camera should I buy? I have $150 to spend. And, and my comment to that is, don't buy a camera, just use your phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if you're only going to spend $150 on your camera, then just use your phone. In this day and age, there really is not a need for a point-and-shoot camera anymore, unless it's a specialty point-and-shoot camera. Like I bought one, you probably can't see it behind me, little underwater one when I went on vacation a while back. So that was something that I would buy. Now today I wouldn't use that. I would just get a GoPro or something like that. But if you're only wanting to spend $150, $200 on your camera, just use your phone.
And Mike, as you're taking pictures, are there legal implications now? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of amateur photographers, and I know this comes up on your show quite a bit. What do I need to worry about? And I know I'm not asking because that's a whole show in itself, but are there resources to help me if I'm an amateur photographer with legal stuff?
Yeah, and the biggest one there is, let's say you're going to enter a photo contest. Let's say you're going to maybe you're going to take a picture and want to put it up on a stock agency or do something like that. You need to have a model release. If you're showing someone else's image, you have to have a release from them. And Rachel Brinke, who's been a guest on our show 5 times, Tim, also called the Law Talk because she's a lawyer. She wrote all these different contracts. You can go through there, and they're all reasonably priced. And she has model releases, the one called releases. So for me, I enter the photo contest here in my town every year. They have a release already, so I don't need that. But if you're out in the field, and shooting different people, you might want to use that image at some other point. You have some of these just in your bag and have that person sign it. So having something like that, if you're going to do a little more, you're going to start charging people. You're going to do some shoots on your own and charge people. Then you need to have a contract with them before you do the shoot. And she has. You saw on that page when you just pulled it up. She has almost every conceivable type of shoot. Boudoir, wedding, seniors, all those different things you're going to shoot. That you can go get those from her, and it's written by a lawyer. So that's a great deal, and they're not that expensive.
If I'm a photographer, I got my camera, right? Maybe I got it last year for Christmas, and I'm accessorizing it at this point. And this is an area I didn't know very much about. I still don't. It's this flash idea, right? It's kind of confusing. And do I have to get I see photographers with big honking ones up on their cameras and stuff. Has that technology gotten better? Is there anything you recommend when we talk about flash?
It gets a little bit better, but it's still really expensive. But this is where I'm going to get you a little bit better of a deal, because all the stuff I talked about before, maybe money you didn't even think about spending. But a flash, if you have a camera, even a lot of the digital SLRs have a pop-up flash on them. But the problem with that is it's really close to the lens, and when the flash and the lens are really close to the same plane, that's where you get that red eye in people's eyes. So what you have to do is remove that flash away from the lens some, and that's called a hot shoe flash. Some of they click on the top, and you can bounce them off the ceiling or something, or you may even be able to set them somewhere else and link to them through a wireless connection. With Canon, Nikon, I don't know about Sony, Tim. Tim shoots Sony. Canon, Nikon, their brand of flash is going to be $500, $600, $700. But there's a great brand out there called, I'm going to mispronounce it here, Yongnuo or whatever.
Yongnuo. Yangnu, yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it. But I've heard from a lot of the people in our JPEG to RAW that they've had really good results from this thing, and instead of costing $500-600, it's $72.
That's pretty reasonable.
I mean
And actually, surprisingly, that's the international warranty. The U.S. warranty is 71.
Wait, I thought I got the other one. I thought I got the U.S. warranty.
No, it's
I can just click over. Yeah, there we go. So there's the U.S. warranty.
Yeah, it's actually cheaper, surprisingly, for the U.S. warranty one.
And
I
want to get the U.S. warranty one. Yeah, it's $72, and it has a built-in wireless transmitter built into the flash. So that is a great deal for whether you have Canon, Sony, Nikon. This flash will work with any of those. And at that price point, you might want to buy more than one. And the deal there is if you're shooting inside, what you can do is with one of those is bounce it off the ceiling, as long as it's like in your house. Bounce it off the ceiling, and then it floods the room with light, so it doesn't even look that way. And at $72, that is just, that's a gift you put in somebody's stocking for that price.
Very cool. And I'm terrible with flash. I'm the guy who blinks every time the flash goes off. I always tell the photographers, can you just turn it off? They just love to have that flash on. And I think, and now, Mike, now that you said that, I'm going to tell them, please just point it up right in front of the room. Just point it to the ceiling so it bounces up. Is there, Tim? Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, and this is getting a little bit off, but if ceilings are low enough, if you have 50-foot ceilings, it won't work. But if you have like 10, 15-foot or lower ceilings, and the ceiling is white, that'll work real well. If it's a red ceiling, then the light coming back down is going to be red. It's going to pick up whatever that color the ceiling is.
Oh, I got you.
But but if most of it's going to have some kind of white ceiling, and then that works really well. It's amazing how well that works. With a normal pop-up flash on your camera, they only go one way. That's straightforward.
Tim, from a flash perspective, because I know you guys come from different camps on the camera side, right? Mike, you're, and I'm gonna, if I get this wrong, you're Canon, Mike?
Nikon.
And you're Canon, Tim, is that right?
No, I'm Sony.
You're Sony. There's three?
Sony's coming on strong. It's going to pass them.
On the Sony side.
Sony actually makes a lot of the Nikon sensors today. The sensor inside of Nikon.
On the Sony side, Tim, is there a different? Well, this flash wouldn't work on a Sony then.
No, I was looking it up. This doesn't look like these flashes would work with Sony. Sony's got a proprietary shoe flash mount, and that might be the big difference on it. Both of them, I have two flashes, external flashes, and they're both Sony branded. Okay. But I think there are other brands, but I stick with the Sony ones.
Are they pretty expensive?
Yeah, they're in the $400 range.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That thing should last forever and make my coffee in the morning.
Better last forever, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if they're any more durable though. That's the thing. You're paying, and Tim, if yours is $400, that's actually cheaper than what the Nikon version is. And I have one right now that's broken, because I dropped it.
Oh yeah, you don't want to drop any of this stuff.
Yeah. Can you buy insurance on that stuff?
I guess you could, but I don't know if I'm gonna buy it on the $500 flash.
Speaking of things that you drop, you can buy straps to kind of hold all your stuff together. And I've seen some pretty, on vacation, some pretty fancy contraptions of guys, it holds the camera right here, or whatever. Mike, you've got, and I'm going to ask Tim, I'm going to ask you as well, Mike, you've got a kind of a strap listed here in the show notes. Why this one?
This is not the exact one that I have. I bought the Sport, but I think if I buy it again, I might buy this one. They're very, very similar. It's the Black Rapid Curve, which I think is like the original one. I bought the Black Rapid Sport, which has an extra strap that goes underneath your arm. And if you see there where they're holding it, and I have an even bigger lens than this. I have a 70-200, which hangs down pretty low. It's a pretty big lens. And it just hangs on your side. So it attaches to the tripod mount on the bottom of your camera, and then just slides on a glide up and down that strap that's around you. So as I'm out shooting, I just let it hang down on my side, and then when I'm ready to shoot, I just lift it up and shoot like that. And now that I trust that strap is going to hold, because when you first do that, I didn't trust having a $2,000 lens hanging down on my side that's not going to break off and hit the ground. But it holds up really well, and it's really convenient. And I don't want to be without it now.
$60.
Yeah, I think mine might have been like $70. I bought the Sport. It's just really nice strap.
Tim?
And I got to agree. I always hated having the original strap that came where it was around the neck and it just sat on your stomach. It always bothered me. You couldn't walk with it. It bounced around and it bothered my neck. So I originally had bought I think it was called the Spider holster, where it was attached to the side of me and it had a ball bearing that would just hang off the side, which really made me nervous. Last year, Mike had mentioned the Black Rapid, and I got this one. I got the one you're showing here, and I absolutely love it. I use it all the time. If I have it on my 7210, I actually have the mount to the lens, not the camera.
Okay.
Yeah, super important. And this is, when we talk about, I mean, $60 is a pretty good price point, you think, for a strap, but it's holding $1,000 or more, right? I mean, several thousand maybe dollars worth of equipment by your side, right?
Yeah, thousands of dollars worth of equipment. If you look at the pros who are shooting a football game, and they will generally have a massive lens. That's probably like a 400 millimeter, maybe a 600 millimeter, and then they have a smaller thing attached to their side. And so they will flip that bigger thing over into the shoulder and then bring up that probably a 70-200 and take their shots as the player gets closer, and then just let it fall back to their side and go back to the bigger lens. And now I'm not going to be lugging around a $8,000 400 millimeter lens, but when you're out shooting, let's say your kid's sports, like I'm shooting swimming or I'm shooting football, being able to slide that thing up and down like that so easily is really important. And if let's say if you're a wedding shooter and you've got two cameras, one with each a different lens on it, you want a wide angle and a zoom. There's ones that are like a dual holster, a lens on a camera on each side, so you can flip between them really easy. To me, that looks kind of cool, but I don't have a purpose for that. The one I have, which is
with dual guns.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, I got to say, I am more likely to have the strap around me using the Black Rapid than I would have ever have had the normal strap that comes with a camera. So it's also safety for me, because if the camera falls out of my hand, it's still on the strap, which is around me. So
yeah,
right, and it looks comfortable. I mean, it's built. It looks like it's built for comfort. So
yeah, I use it when I'm on vacation, walking around. I have it on me all the time. So
yep, super, very cool. I have to look for that when I see a lot of photographers, and I have to look for that. And hey, what kind of strap is that you got on there? Let's talk a little bit about tripods. We have 3. Mike, you have 2. Tim, you have 1, and we'll work down, I think, in price. So, Mike, when we talk about tripods, why are you recommending, or at least as we look at these, what is it that you like about these tripods?
All right, the thing with tripods, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they go to Walmart and buy the $59 tripod. It's that aluminum.
Wait a minute.
There you
Speaking
go.
of that, what are you talking
aluminum-
about? This is a great tripod. Look at this thing. Hold on.
Verbatim or something like that. Veldon.
Velbon. The Velbon 5000.
That center column is a plastic with a plastic ring around it that slides up and down.
It is. I've actually got a mount for my Surface on there. That's what's sitting on there right now. But
so
okay.
if your purpose with that tripod is for your Surface or for maybe your point and shoot camera, that's probably fine. But people who are looking to put their SLR on there, maybe, and a lot of times when you're putting a tripod on your camera on a tripod, is because maybe you got a little bit bigger lens, maybe a 70-200 or something like that, where you need some stability, so some weight. You go buy that thing, and it won't do what you want it to do, and over time it's going to wear down. So you can go, and I have the big tripod, the heavy tripod with the really good ball head, where I spent $800 on a tripod and $500 or $600 on a ball head. So you got a $1,300 tripod ball head set up. Those are heavy to lug around. There's definitely a need for that. But I wanted something a little bit lighter weight that I can have like with me all the time. I leave it in my truck. And it's that Enduro tripod. It's got 3 legs. It's got 3 legs because of the tripod. It's got the 2 dials, where you pull out the legs. Really good. It's got a center column. On a big heavy tripod, I generally go against a center column so you have more support. But in this one, it gives you the ability to move it up and down a little bit more. The Enduro, it's, I guess, what is this, aluminum? I think it is. Yeah, something like that. Not sure what it is. It's not carbon fiber. But it will hold my 7200 pretty good, and then I have an Enduro ball head. So I think the What was the price on the tripod? Maybe 150.
143, I think, and then the ball head is 160.
Yeah, so you're gonna be spending about 300 total for this package. I would say that's the low end of the tripod and ball head setups you should get for something like this. But it's worked well for me for my there you go, you got your weights right there.
Yeah, and they vary widely. 17 pounds being 135, 26 pounds 160, 39 pounds being 180, and then a 55 pound being at 215.
Personally, once I start moving up in those weight things, I'd move away from Duro and go to something like Really Right Stuff, with has I don't have that one pulled out with me right now, but it has it's a better ball head and setup like that. But you're going to be spending $600-700 for something like that.
Yeah, then you're out, right? You're in the big boy leagues. Yeah. At that point.
If you're shooting wildlife and you have a big 400mm lens on that thing, so you have $8,000 worth of lens or more,
$600 for a ball head is nothing.
Then you need to be putting that on solid equipment, because when you're looking at a tripod, you want something that is going to lock down. That the whole purpose of a tripod is to create stability. And if you're putting a $8,000 400mm lens on something lightweight that's not going to add stability, then what are you doing? You need to have that. For me, when I'm shooting with a 7200, it's not nearly that heavy, and it's that Enduro you just showed will work just fine and create that stability. And there's even a little hook at the bottom. I don't know if you can see this, but a little hook down here. And you can put your camera bag on that, and it will pull this whole thing down, adding some weight to the tripod and making it a little bit more stable.
Kind of lowering the center of gravity.
Right.
Yeah. So if those two are the, kind of the budget tripod, Tim, what's this one all about? What's the?
This is the nice little portable one which you can carry with you all the time. I have a really good tripod, and I was going to bring it down to Disney once with me, and I realized it was going to weigh probably half as much as everything in my luggage. So I didn't bring that one with me. I wound up getting a separate tripod. This is a nice little one that you can mount anywhere. Take it with you whenever you need one. You can use it with an SLR. A lot of times they even have different mounts for your camera. So for your phone. So they make different types, and you can use them anywhere. This is something that I bought a long time ago, and I really liked using it.
I have one of those too, and I really like it too. It's got a lot of uses.
Right, because there's a lot of places you can't use a tripod. This you probably can.
Yep. I've even used it like in the dugout at a baseball game when I was shooting a baseball game, wrapped it around a pole, and put a camera on that thing inside the dugout.
Right, and then nobody sees it.
Or just like we were talking before, that flash we were talking about, you don't have to put a camera on it. You can attach a flash.
Right, you can
to that
attach
thing.
a flash to this.
Yeah,
in off-camera shooting flash, it's nice to have it somewhere out of the way and secure so it doesn't get knocked over by somebody else either.
These also, some like the C920 webcams have that. What's that screw called? That the camera mount on the bottom.
Yeah.
You can put your C920 on these and then mount that anywhere in your, if you got an unusual setup in your office and you need to attach it to something. Those things will wrap around and they'll do some. I showed some pictures earlier of where they'll go for sure. All right, so that covers three different kinds of tripods going down, and then of course you've got to put all this stuff in a bag, right? It's got to go in a bag, Mike. And what's the #1 video camera being sold today? Oh no, that's not the bag. That's not the bag. I saw a bag.
What
here.
you're doing?
I didn't
I'm
know
like,
what
where
I
are
was
we
doing
going
either.
with this?
Well, real quick before we go to this, the #1 camera being sold today. Before we go to this, how important is the bag? Is that a big deal anymore? I mean, are there still a whole bunch of varieties of bags?
My wife would say that I own more camera bags than she owns pocketbooks.
Yeah. And there's a reason why, I don't know for sure for Tim, but I would say there's a reason why a lot of photographers own a lot of bags. And I didn't put a bag here just for this reason. None of us have found the perfect bag yet.
No, that's why I own a lot.
Yeah. We keep buying different bags up with, this is the bag. And no, I don't know what the perfect bag is. I can't find it.
Okay, so
I'm going to have to say that to my wife. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the perfect bag, right?
The thing you run into as you get into, or at least I do, when I get in, now that I'm shooting with an SLR, where you change the lenses, that's what we're talking about, is when you go somewhere, is what lenses do I not take? I feel like I want to take too many of them, and I don't want to be caught away from home without it, and that's always a struggle. And then what bag fits that stuff? Or then if you want to go lighter, you don't want to have a huge bag that holds all your gear, but you're only bringing 2 lenses. So it's I don't know if there is one perfect bag.
Is there a backpack bag because that would make sense, right?
Right.
That's what I'm using pretty
Backpack,
much
there's
now.
shoulder. Yeah, there's all kind of different varieties. There's even, the hard case stuff and the stuff on rollers you can do. There's a lot of different choices.
When I went away on vacation last year, or this summer, I weighed my camera bag. It was 28 pounds.
Oh.
I was like, really, this is getting to be too much.
It's an expensive hobby, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It can be, yes.
You think podcasting's bad? Start doing photography. Okay, I mentioned earlier Canon, Nikon, and
Sony.
Sony. Which of those has the #1 best-selling camera right now, Mike Howard?
Video
Which one?
camera. Video
Huh?
camera.
Yeah, video
Video
camera.
camera.
Which has the #1 best-selling video camera?
None of those 3.
Isn't that crazy?
It is the GoPro. I mean, that is the #1 seller, and I have the Hero 3. They now have the Hero 4 out, and I mentioned before I bought a point and shoot because we were going on a cruise, and I knew I was going to do some underwater video. To me, I personally have no need to ever buy a point and shoot again. Instead, what I would do when we go on vacation again, and I've used it around here too, is I want to do underwater stuff. I would just use this GoPro, and it has so many other uses. It can be a still camera. I mentioned before, that whole thing that Tim was just talking about with his GorillaPod. I attached this to a GorillaPod. I have a tripod mount, and put it in a dugout in baseball, and had it set to take a photo every 1 second. Every 1 second at 12 megapixels, so it's a 12 megapixel camera, and then I had it at the phone app on my phone. So as people came back into the dugout, I would turn it on, and it took those photos. Like, I don't know if it was 1 second, maybe it was 5 seconds, and then I'd made like a little motion picture of that later on, a still image motion picture of that later on.
Tim, do you own a GoPro?
No, I keep trying to figure out, do I need one? It's really, I want to find a use for it, and because it's not a cheap investment, like nothing in photography is. But and I'm sure if I had one, I'd wear it. And I look at the people, like when I go skiing and they got it mounted on their helmet or on their chest, and I'm like, do I really want to be that person out there? I'm not sure yet. Or the selfie stick.
That is the thing. What do you do with this thing now that you got it? And I haven't used it as much as I wanted. I bought it because last year when we had Snowmageddon, it was the world almost ended because Atlanta got, I think, 2 inches of ice. One of my coworkers drove in to work with one of these strapped to his hood, and when he got there, he was looking at the video, and it was just fantastic. The quality of the video was just fantastic. As soon as that video was done playing, I logged into Amazon right there at work and bought it all right there. and these things are used, these things are used by professional photographers of people too. So let's say you're shooting Deadliest Catch on Discovery or whatever that channel is. They're using some GoPros in some of their shots. There's a lot of professional quality stuff that's using these things in their production. This will shoot. I think the one I have will shoot 1080p at 60 frames a second. The new Hero 4 will shoot 1080p at 120 frames a second. And this one will shoot 4K, but it's only, I think, 15 frames a second. Where the new ones, let me look that up. 4K is 30 frames a second, and 2K is 50 frames a second. So that's pretty darn good.
And that's another ecosystem, though, that you start at $500 and you work your way up.
Yeah,
right?
the one thing is, you're gonna spend $500 for one of these. You still got to buy the memory card that goes inside of it, but that wasn't that expensive. I bought a 64 gig card. That wasn't that expensive. And then the accessories that I have are not that expensive, actually.
Okay.
I have a
$40, I think, each, probably.
Yeah, some of them are a little bit even cheaper than that. I had, and great on quadcopters, Rennie says. I have the suction cup thing, and I've suction cupped it to the hood of my truck and went driving through the mud.
I don't know if
And
I trust that suction cup.
I didn't know if I would either because that's $500 you're strapping to your hood.
Yeah, really.
But it said it was rated for 150 miles an hour. And I said, you know what? If I see it start to come off, I'll stop. I did wish I had like
If you see it starting to come off, it's gone.
yeah, I wish I had like a little safety cable attached to it. But when we got done going
That's a
through
good
that,
idea.
and there was mud and dirt splashing up and hitting this thing, and it's in a protective case. And that did make the video, like when it got splashed with mud. Okay, now I got mud covering the lens.
Right.
But when I got to the end, it was suction cupped on there, still really, really good. It was when I got to, I was worried when I was driving, but when I got to the end, I realized there's no way that thing was coming off.
Yeah, I think the GoPro is the gift for the guy that's got everything except a GoPro, right? I mean, if that's the kind of, I think that's the kind of the gift that falls into. And so my brother, my younger brother, brought one. He's taken tons of pictures with it. They've gone underwater, and then he's put these videos together for his kids with music, and that's really cool. Let's talk a little bit about presentation of that. And Tim, we'll drop over to your notes here real quick. And you threw in there some photo frames. I thought the era of photo frames is over, right? A couple years ago, you could buy really clunky photo frames in the store, and you'd have to get an SD card and put it in or USB. Has that changed?
Yeah, and that's the reason I never really got one before, because I always hated the idea of you had to have the card in there, and then I have to go update the card, or I had pictures on there that were 4 years old. Finally, the frame I had up in my living room died, and I started looking around, and my brother-in-law actually found one years ago that was Wi-Fi / Flickr / email. But I found this one from Nixplay, which is really good. I have you get a website with it where you upload the pictures to the website. You can also do it via an SD card. So now I upload the pictures to the website. Automatically it transfers over to this, and I can have multiple accounts. So I'm going to get one from my mother-in-law. So she lives up in Connecticut. I can control what's on her screen via this. At the same time, it could also email pictures to it. Now, one thing I did like about the emailing of the pictures of it, it's not like anybody can email any picture to it and it's automatically going to go up there, because you can imagine someone might send something that's not very tasteful.
Sure.
You actually get an email and you have to prove that the picture is going to go on the screen. So it's got a little bit of safety on it. So this is one of the ones I really liked. I bought the 8-inch. I probably should have bought the 12-inch. My wife's like, no, the 8 is fine. But
so the one you have there is a 12-inch for, what was it, $139?
$139, and the 8-inch is $100.
Oh, that's very good, Tim.
That's pretty cool. So I mean, they've really upped it. It seemed like I said, a couple of years ago, everybody was doing these frames. You could buy them at the dollar store.
Right, you could buy them anywhere.
Yeah, and they weren't very good. And some people tried them. I still see some of my friends using them, and but this definitely takes it up. I love that idea though of uploading to a website and then having them come down.
Right, because I can manage the frame from right here, awesome. And I can tell it to turn off at certain hours or to turn on only when somebody walks by it. I change it so it changes the pictures every 5 seconds. So now it's nice. We were actually, this past Thanksgiving, people were sitting in my living room staring at the photo frame, and I think about all the pictures I take. And Mike, you probably the same way as me. I do not print nearly as many pictures as I ever did before. So
I'm thinking about my mother-in-law who, she's not going to see any of the photos that I take of the kids because I never print them, just like you said. They're all here on my computer. And if I can push them to her and she could see them, at her house without having to do anything, that is fantastic.
My mom sees everything on Facebook. We upload them there, and then she goes and makes inappropriate comments.
My sister got my father a Facebook account, but he's never been in it.
Yeah, my mother-in-law won't go on there either. So
it's another way of doing it. Tim, you have a fisheye device in here. I don't really understand this technology. So
well, this is a 3-in-1 lens kit for a smartphone. This is I thought for the people that have it, and my brother-in-law got me one of these last year for my phone, where you take a lot of pictures. A lot of people take a lot of pictures with their phones. Probably the vast majority of pictures that went up on Facebook are via a phone. So this, you can either have a fisheye lens on it, or a wide angle, or even a macro lens. So you could take different types of pictures, and it wasn't even expensive. Now I'm not going to vouch for the quality of the pictures. I mean, it is a camera phone after all, but this is just to get some creative pictures out there, and it attaches very easily to your phone.
And there you go. There's some example of fisheye. Fisheye is where you get this really wide shot, but it creates like a bubble, and the thing in the center is kind of protruding out to you.
Yeah, some really creative,
Yeah.
some really creative. There's the lenses that are available to fisheye, and then the macro. So that macro is designed to do what?
To zoom in very close on let's say you want to take a picture of I don't know, say a stamp. You're not going to get a close up of it. This will zoom in on the picture, on the stamp.
And that 0.67 means it'll go half as it's half as better as it would be.
Pretty make it about twice as wide,
Okay, twice as wide. Got it.
or twice as close, I should say.
Yeah.
Because you're taking your phone before, and at a certain point you can't move the phone any closer, or because it won't focus.
Won't focus, right? I mean, it's kind of clunky that way. So this just attaches. It's a universal for regardless of what phone you have. It just
Pretty
clamps
much,
onto
right.
the phone, and then you do it that way. Well, that's kind of cool.
Ken asked, so you can upload remotely to the frame. Going back to the frame.
Oh, going back to the frame.
Yeah.
Correctly. You can upload. What I'm doing right now is I take it off my computer and I upload to the website, and then it automatically gets transferred into the frame. So because it's Wi-Fi to my network, and if I had this hooked up at my mother-in-law's house, it connects to her Wi-Fi, and it would hook. She'd be able to get any of the pictures that I wanted on it. So that's what I liked about it the most. This is something I've been looking for a long time.
Yeah.
A Wi-Fi type one where I could manage it from my computer, where I probably spend more time than I never pulled the card out of my old frame.
Yeah, and I've been looking for something like that too, the right thing. So that's perfect, Tim.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's a good one for mom because you put it on mom and you're like every once a month, set yourself a note, update mom's photo thing,
frame,
right?
Yeah.
Boom, you upload the picture, set it, send it, bam, you're done, right? And they just show up, right? They just show up on her frame.
You get a phone call in a couple of days, say, Jim, I saw some new pictures on there. Yes, you did. I'm glad you're looking.
Very good. Yeah, my mom would be calling me saying, "Can you load some no pictures? They've been on there 2 days now."
Can you drop somebody drop the link to the frame in the chat?
So here, let me do that for you guys.
I'm actually gonna have this in the show notes, right?
Yeah, it'll all be in the show notes when we go. But let me copy and paste that in there right now. So you guys, sorry, I have not put in those listening live. I've not put all these links. We will have those all in the show notes here this weekend when I post it live. Okay, Tim, let's talk about. You have a couple bits of cleaning gear that's in here. You've got
and this really came out of necessity. This after my last vacation, I came back and I looked at my pictures and I had sensor dust all over my sensor. So I needed to get something to clean it out. I wound up getting the air blaster, and Mike, I think you actually have this one as well.
I do.
It does clean out especially with an SLR where you're exchanging lenses. There's certain things you need to do. Don't change it in a dusty environment. Do it with the camera off. Have the camera pointing down so dust doesn't rest on it. But either way, dust is going to get inside the lens. And it's not like when you had film where every single time you took a picture, it would advance and you always had a clean sensor, so to speak. Now that sensor's there for 10,000 straight pictures and it doesn't change. So technology has gotten better. It does clean itself a little bit, but it's still not perfect. I wound up using this to clean out the chamber. I use this maybe once every 2 months just to clean out, or if I see anything on the pictures. And usually where you're going to see it is if you take a picture of a landscape and it's the sky, you're going to see instead of a clear blue sky or the clouds in the sky, you're going to see a speck of dust hanging out there. And it's not something you're going to see with the naked eye. It's going to be something that is so tiny on the sensor, but it is so large on the picture. Then you spend a lot of time cleaning it up in post-production.
And it'll look like just a weird little darker spot in the sky. So it's not like dust where you would see it in maybe a film or like a line. This is going to be like just a darker little spot in the sky. You don't know why is that there? I don't know what that is. And I use it sometimes on my bigger lenses too to like spray off dust off the bigger dust before I clean it another way. It's a good air blaster.
So while we're talking about cleaning, we have a lens pen.
Yeah, this is something, and I use this all the time on my lenses because if you get fingerprints on there, you're going to wind up seeing it. This is something that I carry, and I actually bought a couple of these for different camera bags that I have, and it's for cleaning the lens. It cleans off the back of the viewfinder as well. It has different types within it. And it's not expensive. $10 is not something expensive. But you know, when you have a smudge on the front of your lens, you don't want to be cleaning it with your shirt because cotton fibers will scratch the lens. So this is something that is safe. You figure you got an $800 lens. Do you want to really clean it with something, paper towel, that is going to scratch it?
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing a paper towel, even your shirt. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
I put filters in the front of all of mine, so sometimes I don't mind using my shirt. But if you spent the money on a lens, you need to use something like that to protect the lens, so you don't scratch it.
And is this the same deal?
Yeah. Well, this was after the. This probably should have been after the air rocket. This was actually what I needed to use to clean my actual sensor, which I never wanted to actually do, was touch my sensor, because that is the most important part of your camera. I had to actually go in there and clean the sensor with this. I went over the sensor twice, took pictures, and my sensor was absolutely clean after that. So versus sending it in for repairs, because otherwise you almost have to send it in for repairs, and it's going to cost you probably minimum of $100 to send it in to have your sensor cleaned. Mike, have you ever had to use this?
I am too nervous to use this. So this is not for the faint of heart, and
no.
You got to be very careful. So the air duster, you don't actually touch. You don't want to touch the sensor. You're just blowing the stuff out. With this one, you're actually touching the sensor and trying to get that stubborn stuff off. That the airbrush may not get it. I mean, the air blower may not get it all off. This will get it off, but you mess up that sensor, and there you go. It's done.
It's good night now.
Good night now.
Now did that one have any liquid to it?
It also had the liquid with it, but I didn't need to use it. That's if you have something really stuck on there. And I don't know if I would have actually went to that. I just used the brush. And I think if I remember correctly, when you use the brush, I actually had to use an air can to charge up the brush. You had to blow through the brush so that it actually attracted the particles of dust on it.
Okay.
All right. Let's look at this.
Tim has another great one coming up.
Let me throw that out there.
All right, this is anybody taking a lot of pictures and want to print anything. I think I know we've talked about this previously, and I actually changed from an older model to this one just this past year. Monitor calibration, where you would be so surprised to realize how off your camera is. If you want to get something printed, and then you print it, and it's like, why the color's red? After you calibrate your screen, it'll show you before and after results. You can say, this is what it's supposed to look like. It's just helping you set the baseline. So when you look at a picture and you say, all right, I want to print it, this is what it's going to come out like, versus having no idea.
I think if you're a photographer and you're working in Photoshop or Lightroom, wherever you're working in, and you're editing your photos and you're not doing it on a calibrated monitor, then you really have no clue what you're really doing.
Right.
You may be trying to get a tint out in the image. Maybe you think there's a green tint in the image or some other kind of tint in the image, and it's really not there. Maybe you're creating that green tint or some kind of orange tint because you're doing it off a non-calibrated monitor. I have 4 monitors in front of me, and only one of them is calibrated. And it is amazing the difference between these monitors. And the one I'm talking to you guys on is when I normally look on Facebook, and like when I'm looking at the images that people post in our group, Tim, I'm looking at them there, and I remember somebody posted a black and white image in one of our contests, and I thought, that is fantastic. I love that image. Until I pulled it over onto my calibrated monitor. Oh wait, it's not quite what I thought it was. So calibrating your monitor is critical.
Yes.
And not too terribly expensive, but I think for a photographer, one of those things that you need to have. I want to show this iFi card, and we've talked about these are not new by any means, but have these gotten? It seemed like early on they were kind of iffy. Have they gotten better? Is this technology changing much?
Yeah, I wound up using this partly because we had a podcast about the Photosmith app for the iPad, where what I was doing when I was on vacation, I wanted to take the pictures off my camera onto the iPad so that I can tag them, which is put names, places, locations, the people attached to the picture. Versus waiting when I got home. The iFi card enabled me to transfer the pictures from the camera through Wi-Fi, creates its own Wi-Fi hotspot to the iPad, and it was sending over a smaller version of the picture, just the JPEG, versus the full RAW file. So I was able to get all the pictures without any problem onto my iPad to keyword my files. What you could also use this for is if you want to get pictures. Now you think about people have cameras, and you want to. My wife's always saying, "Well, you got to give me a picture so I can put it on Facebook." Well, now she can attach to my camera to put the pictures onto her phone, so she can email them out to Facebook right away.
Oh,
So
nice.
it has worked very well for me.
Yeah. So it gives you almost like a Facebook ready, because that's all you really want to share on Facebook anyways. You keep the raw ones there and get them later, but it gives you kind of a quick access to those Facebook ready photos.
Correct.
Yeah, very cool. Mike, there was some question. Let me ask both of you. There was some question in chat about that, going back to that calibration device. Walk me through real quick. I get one. I open it, take it out of the package. I stick it on my monitor. Then what? I mean, but is there software that I use?
Yeah,
or?
there's software that you use, and in mine's I have a Spider 3, so it's a little bit older than his. What mine does, it hangs on the monitor, and then it will read data coming from it. And as it's doing the color calibration, it sends a bunch of different colors to it. A bunch of different shades of red and green and blue. And as it's doing that, it's reading that, and then it will tell you, it'll make an adjustment, making a monitor calibration file or whatever it is, and then that does that. It also will measure the brightness coming from it, so you can adjust your contrast and your brightness.
So I assume that software runs on Windows, or go ahead, Tim. Okay.
And what it also does is it's Mike. I think you have this pretty much the same one. It's right now. It's sitting on top of my monitor stand here, and if the lights are brighter in the room, it adjusts the screen to whatever the surrounding brightness is. Now you got to do a regular calibration every 2 weeks. I have it set for to do a calibration as well.
And I have mine set for every month, and it's surprising. You think, a month, or like in terms of 2 weeks. When I do it, it actually is different.
Yes.
So your monitor is drifting ever so slightly, and I have a decent Dell monitor here, but it will drift a little bit over time.
It's kind of like me during the podcast. I just kind of drift. We go over time. Hey, let's jump to the very end. We're running right up against some time constraints here. Not really, but that's fun to say. Let's jump to the very end. This is because we've talked about quadcopters in the past here. And Tim, you've got one picked out that I kind of like too. Why don't you talk about this?
Yeah, I've been watching the podcast from one of Leo Laporte's Know How, and they've been talking about quadcopters, and it's something I wanted to get for the longest time. And this is kind of what they call the training quadcopter. It's only $60. It's very easy to use. It's a good learning one versus going out and buying the $500 one where you reckon you're going to cry. This one can bounce off the ground. It can land upside down because it's got the protectors on it. And it also comes with a camera. Now, I didn't get it. It's actually coming in the mail tomorrow. It's a Christmas gift for my son. So I'm not sure if it's really for him or for me, but I like the idea of this. He's 12.
It's for both of you. It's for
exactly.
Both of you. We're showing some pictures now. If you are watching to the audio, we did a lot of screen shares, so you might want to head over to theaverageguy.tv/HGG194 just to get towards the back half of the show, and we'll have a lot of pictures. $60, Tim. I mean, this is actually pretty reasonable when we think about quadcopters.
Yeah, and I think it came with did it come with 2 batteries? It comes with the camera built into it. Now, I'm sure the camera is nothing spectacular. I think it's 2 megapixel, but it's just the idea of having it. And then you take it all the way up, and you get them where they have the gimbal underneath, where you get some really great pictures with a steady camera. And who knows what comes from this? Maybe I do get something later in the future.
Yeah.
And you say it's a training thing. If you you can always step up to something bigger later.
Right on.
Exactly.
I think that's the key, because man, you can drop these things. I mean, with think about putting your GoPro on that thing and then sending it up. And when we had John Nye on here the last time, he was like, I think he was the one who said he lost one. That one,
Wow.
Yeah, I think I got my son a couple of years ago one of those little helicopters, and we tried to use it in the basement, and it didn't really do a lot in the house. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go outside with it." I was like, "All right, I'm going to come out with you. Wait till I get out there." When I tell you, I wasn't out there 2 minutes later, and it had flown over the house, over to a neighbor's house on their roof. I was like, "Really, Jack?" And that was the end of it. It landed on the roof. It broke into pieces, and I was like, "That was a Christmas gift that lasted less than 10 minutes.
Wow.
How much was it?
That was probably $20.
Oh, okay. So not too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I mean,
Not too
it was
bad.
probably 8 or 9 at the time. So.
Yeah. Good. Well, a little trainer quadcopter. Mike, have you thought about some aerial photography via quadcopter?
I have. I've looked at some of those things and they look really interesting, but they've always been too much money for me to spend on that. $60. It sounds like a great way to get into into that space and try it out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, thanks for Did you have one more thing to say?
Well, and Ken was asking about what about calibrating your TV? You know, we're coming from the photographer standpoint, so we're talking about calibrating our monitors. These devices, I don't think you can use them to calibrate
Yeah, I
your
don't think
TV.
so.
Yeah, so
They do sell devices for it.
yeah.
They're different than this, but I don't think we can speak to that. At least I can't.
I can't either. I'm talking from the photographer point. So I think there are things out there. There are ways to do it, but I don't know how to do it.
All right, very cool. Guys, thanks for taking a bunch of time to roll through. I mean, we quickly went through 30 or 40 things for your photographer, maybe loved one, family member, sibling, something along those lines, if they're a photographer. We have given you a bunch of really good ideas to some things that some reasonably priced, actually most of them. You guys did a nice job. I think the GoPro was probably the most expensive item on there at $500, and that's for the 4, right? That's for the GoPro 4. It's $499.
Well, some of those workshops can be in the hundreds or thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So I think what we gave you was a mix of stuff that might appeal to people who aren't quite as crazy about the hobby or business in photography. You know, Tim had a great list of stuff there. And then we had some stuff that maybe is a little more expensive. So I think we had a good line of stuff.
A good mix of things for your photographer and in your life, and some good stuff. Well, again, I'll take all the show notes that everything these guys, all these links they give me, we'll put them in the show notes. So if you want to head out there and take a look, peek at those, and of course, if you are a photographer and you didn't know, jpegtoraw.com. Every Tuesday evening, you want to pop over there. 7:30, I think 7:30 Central.
Yeah,
8:30 Pacific.
8:30 Eastern.
I mean 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Pacific. It's because I'm tired. It's been a long day. That's why I'm saying it. And Mike and Tim and sometimes Sess and guests, some great guests. Just last Tuesday, you had a guy that
coming from England at 1 a.m. A guy who got found by his Flickr photos. Amazing photographer, got found by his Flickr photos from Coke. Coke called and said, "Can we use some of your photos in our social media?" And he agreed, and then Coke said, "Hey, we like this so much. Would you mind being the lead photographer for our FIFA 2014 World Trophy Tour? And we're going to take you around the world to about 90 different countries over the next 9 months. Would you be up for that?" And of course he was.
Every 2 to 3 days he was in a different country.
So that's what we had on Tuesday.
You know what? That's cool for about a week, and then you're like, you miss home.
Actually, he enjoyed the whole time, I think he said.
Good. Yeah. So that's JPEG to RAW, and if you want to listen to that, I can't believe if you've listened to this podcast for very long, you didn't know that. But if you didn't, and you're into photography, some great content over there, and I try to catch that. I'm not a photographer, so you guys lose me. Now I know how the tech guys feel, or the non-tech people when they listen to this show. They're like, "Oh, you lost me," and I'm like, "It's not that hard," but I get it. So going forward, you guys are doing good stuff over there as well. I want to remind you that December is Leave a Review for your favorite podcast month. I just made that up, and but it would be a great idea in the month of December while you have a few extra moments. Maybe you're sitting around listening to the podcast, or you're ordering stuff for Christmas. Head out to iTunes for both JPEG to RAW and here Home Gadget Geeks, maybe even Cyber Frontiers. We'd love to have reviews for you in iTunes. That's always very helpful. I don't ask for that very much, and if you've made it to this far, we're an hour and 39 minutes into the podcast. If you've made it this far, you are the most engaged listeners that we have at this point. One, I want to say thanks. Thanks for doing that. We got a great community, and I appreciate you guys. But two, if you got a second, leave us a review where you listen to us, and that would be great as well. I'll remind you of the Amazon links, and you guys are great about doing that, so appreciate that. TheAverageGuy.tv/Amazon or TheAverageGuy.tv/AmazonCA for our Canadian residents. If you signed up for the newsletter, you know that I'm late. It is December 4th, and I haven't got that newsletter out yet. In fact, I'm going to write that down. Newsletter. I just remembered this morning. I'm like, oh, I didn't get one out. The monthly. We just do it once a month, and I won't even spam you because I've forgotten about December already. But it's a good way to keep up with what's going on here in the community, and a way for me to wish you a Merry Christmas. And so head over to theaverageguy.tv, look for the newsletter sign-up area. It's on the right-hand side, and we'd love to have you do that. And then one final reminder. Let's see, what else do I have? Or maybe not one final one. We'd love to invite you to join us for Cyber Frontiers. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but Christian and Ashton have joined me now on a very consistent, regular, every other Monday schedule for Cyber Frontiers. Very geeky, very big data and cybersecurity driven. Those guys make me feel really bad about myself.
Yes, they do. Wow.
Yeah. They are so smart. Oh, man. So they're actually going to join me next week here on Home Gadget Geeks. So if you're a regular listener, they'll be back on. But I invite you to join, give Cyber Frontiers a try. It might be a great time to do it, again, during the holidays. Don't forget to visit the Kickstarter program. That'll be available. That link will be available in the show notes for OnAir Player, and I think as soon as it's available, I will probably pick one up. And then every Saturday morning, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, Saturday mornings, Mike Howard and he joins us in chat. I'm on the show with Dave Jackson out at Ask the Podcast Coach. It's a super fun show. You don't even have to be a podcaster to come. You might learn something new. Mike does his editing while he's listening and joins us there in chat. Ask the Podcast Coach, all one word, .com/.
And that's on this Saturday?
We are, yeah. You know what? With the holidays, we're not going to skip. We don't have to skip anything because the holidays are all in the middle of the week.
It has become a every Saturday morning thing for me.
Thank you.
I sit here and do my editing and watch the show, so it's a really fun time for Saturday morning.
Yeah, and Dave Jackson's a hoot, and I just love hanging out with him, and we have a good time doing that together. And so, lots of good stuff going on. I've been interviewed in a whole bunch of different places, and if you want to know what those are, always head out to theaverageguy.tv. We have a other podcast section that's out there, and anytime I'm featured somewhere or I do a podcast somewhere else, for whatever reason, I put it in that section. And so if you want to know some of the things, I was on Open Mic Night with Mike Uyghur over at UyghurTech.com the other day. And, of course, you can't miss the strength stuff that we do for work. I mean, I do all this on the side, but my real job is podcasting at work. And, of course, you can catch that coaching.gallup.com if you want to see what I do. This is just a little bit of what I do, just a little bit, but a lot of work going forward. We'll say thanks for coming out tonight, Tim. And Mike, thank you for taking the time and staying a long time. You guys have done a great job. Thanks both for coming out.
Thank you.
We will do it all again next Thursday. I think, yes, we'll do it all again next Thursday. After with the holidays, it always messes me up. We won't be here Christmas, but next Thursday, 8 p.m., 9 Central, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. Stay around for a tiny little post show. Good night, everybody.